Was there a moment that you recall, a meeting, an event, a person you met that really elevated you from cosmetic surgeon in Joplin, Missouri to now one of North America's leading spokespeople for what's new in aesthetic medicine?
There's a character who you know well. His name's Steve Mulholland, and I just remember watching him, thinking, "Gosh, he is." Some of my fondest memories are owning and operating my own small businesses as an early 20-year-old, and I found a ton of fulfillment, not just in the surgery I do, but being able to own and operate a business has been just so rewarding.
Welcome to Challenger X. I'm Jerome Dwight, entrepreneur, investor, and business leader. Every episode, I sit down with a challenger, a leader rewriting the rules, redefining the industries, and shaping the future of business. Today's guest is Dr. Talon Meningas, renowned surgeon, business owner, and author who has built a world-class cosmetic surgery practice in Joplin, Missouri. Despite being in a small town, Dr. Meningas has created one of North America's most successful practices, attracting patients from all over the country due to his innovative approach and exceptional treatment outcomes. He's also a pioneer in the latest in modern medical device technologies in aesthetic medicine. So let's get started. Dr. Talon Meningas, welcome to the Challenger X podcast. We are delighted to have you. You have been tough to get a hold of. You're a busy guy. You run one of the most prominent practices out of Joplin, Missouri in cosmetic surgery and med spa, but you're also an author, a speaker, and really at the forefront of all things aesthetic medicine. So we're delighted we got a chance to talk to you. And I'm excited because the company I co-founded, Boomerang FX, is also a partner with you. I want to go back to the start, right? Dr. Meningas, what inspired you to pursue a career in medicine, cosmetic surgery? Tell me a little bit about how it all got started.
For sure. Well, first off, Jerome, thanks for having me. This is so fun for me to be able to do with you. And sometimes I got to wake up in the morning, pinch myself. I'm like, how are these guys asking me to be on a podcast? I'm just a small town kid from a tiny little town, Podunk, Missouri, Redneckville. And here we are doing this podcast. So yeah, thank you guys very much. It's an honor to be here. Funny question. If you asked me 20 years ago, I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but cosmetic surgery in a world in aesthetics was definitely not from it. I was on the opposite side of the spectrum. I knew surgery, and I loved like reconstruction. I wanted to fix broken things. So if you smashed your face on a steering wheel, I was your guy. Or if you had a cancer deformity after a big cancer surgery, I love that. And when it came to the pretty stuff, honestly, I kind of scoffed at it. Like, that's that fluffy stuff I don't even want to do. And interestingly enough, I chased the recon hard. I went to medical school and I pursued a residency in head and neck surgery. Did that for 5 years. At the very end, I went on 10 interviews, Jerome, 10 interviews for what's called surgical oncology. And I was top of my class in everything I did. I presumed to be an unbelievable applicant. And funny enough, because of the way the politics worked back then, my medical degree is a DO degree. We've got MDs and DOs here in the United States, and there was a lot of politics way back when I was going through my residency training. And because of the politics, everyone's like, "We love you and we want to have you, but we got to go through the MD match first. And if the MD match doesn't turn out, like, you are number one candidate," because I was not able to participate in what's called the allopathic, the MD match. I had to go through the DO match. And that kind of gave me a little chip on my shoulder because I was being told, "Hey, you're our number one pick, but because you're not, can't go through this legitimate match, we got to go here first." And so when I wrestled through that, I talked to some mentors. I talked to my wife, and I'm like, "Man, this is frustrating. 10 interviews, all went well. All said they want me, but can't have me until after they select through the match first." And then my wife said, "Why don't you just screw all that stuff? Who cares about trauma and being up in the middle of the night and doing calls from the ER?" She's like, "Why don't you do something that you can have a business and we can run together?" And I looked at her and said, "Well, what would that be?" She said, "Just go do aesthetics." And I kind of laughed. I'm like, "Aesthetics? Why would I do aesthetics? I'm going to do cancer recon." She said, "Just look into So, as often happens, gentlemen, if you're watching this, if you listen to your significant others well and just do what they say, usually good things happen. And so I listened to her. I went to one of the biggest and best aesthetic fellowship programs after my residency. I interviewed there. The rest is history. I went on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They offered me the spot on Monday, and I said yes, and here we are. So it was an 11th and a half hour decision, Jerome, to do aesthetics for sure. But just to back up, before that, I also got my MBA when I got my medical degree. So I had a very unique drive to also conduct business. Some of my fondest memories are owning and operating my own small businesses as an early 20-year-old. And so on the backside of listening to my wife and ending up in aesthetics, I found a ton of fulfillment, not just in the surgery I do, but being able to own and operate a business has been just so rewarding.
That's a great story, and I think we all can take a lesson from listening to our significant other. So was that the point? Was that the inflection point where you said, I'm going to go into aesthetics? Because from there you really soared, and you went into business school as well. Talk to me about what that motivation was to not just finish medical school, do cosmetics, then go into business school.
Yes. So actually, it happens simultaneously. So if you want some pain and punishment, if you want some serious pain and punishment, go to medical school and get your MBA at the exact same time, because that's what I did, and have all three of your kids in the same 4-year kind of time span. So we had all 3 kids before med school was done, and I got my MBA, so we just packed it all in there. But before I started, and this is in that book that we wrote, Exodus, is my story. And early on, my dad did one of the biggest favors he could have done, and he's a physician as well, and he did not have to do this, but he taught me the value of money. And the way he did that is I had to buy my first car, at least half of it. He matched what I raised, and I'm a car guy. Like, that, Jerome. I love cars. And so even at 16, I wanted a fancy car. And I said, Dad, I don't have any money. And he said, well, that's a problem, son. You better go get a job. And so at early on, 14 years old, because I wanted a car by 16, at 14, I just worked construction jobs, and I ended up falling into landscaping and irrigation. I did it every summer. I'll spare you the details. You can read the book, but in the Cliff Notes version, I ended up doing that every summer. And before long, years into it, I was probably 18 or 19 because I was in college. My dad came to me and said, son, I got a ER doctor that works with me. He was wondering if you'd just come put in a sprinkler system on a Saturday. And I thought to myself, well, I know how. I know how to bid the jobs. I just don't have access to materials because I don't have accounts. And he said, oh, well, I'll help you over that hurdle. And he said, just go give him a bid. And I gave him a bid. He accepted it. And crazy enough, I did a sprinkler system, installed his yard on a Saturday and Sunday. And I distinctly remember this. And this is in the early 2000s, where the pay scale is a lot different than it is today in 2024. But I remember as a 19-year-old young man walking away with $2,000 profit at the end of that weekend. And I told myself, it was like a light bulb moment. I will never work for someone else ever again as long as I can make that happen. And so that entrepreneurial spirit was kind of driven home through that experience and of making my own money, made way more than I could have ever made, 10, 12 bucks an hour by doing it for myself. And I haven't had a boss since. And so you fast forward into med school, I just had that entrepreneurial spirit. So there was an opportunity to get your medical degree and an MBA at the same time. I said, man, I'm going to absolutely do that. And then on the backside of finishing and now 10 years into my career, it's turned out to be a really good move.
Yeah, what's striking to me is you have a way of bringing the business skill set that you clearly have to the medical world. And I've heard you speak to thousands of doctors and medical practice owners because there's a real gap in business skill sets in the field. And I know you have a passion to really educate. And I think you're one of the most electrifying speakers on stage when it comes to teaching medical professionals how to do the business side of things. But I want to go back to your journey. You were based out of Joplin, Missouri. Most people that get an MBA and medical school, they go off to the big city, right? And, try to hit it big. But you were a bit of a challenger. You broke the rules. You said, I'm staying put, and I'm going to build a world-class facility in this town. So how did you get there?
So, okay, we're not only learning business principles, but we're learning life lessons. The first life lesson was listen to your spouse, right? That was life lesson number one. Life lesson number two, when you listen to your spouse, though, or when you decide to hitch your wagon to someone, it may be very likely that you get stuck where they're at. And then in my case, that's what's happened. So my wife is born and raised in a small town called Joplin, Missouri. My dad was in the military. We ended up in Joplin when I was 15 years old. We were high school sweethearts, got married. We've been married. We've been together 23 years now. And, as kind of organically these things happen, her whole family's here. It's many generations, all the extended families here. So it's very natural to kind of just get wrapped up in all that. And so if you would ask both of us early on, going through undergraduate, we went to Division I undergraduate school, Oklahoma State University. We went to Kansas City for medical school. This is the last place we were going to come. We were like on the first boat out. But as you start having kids and as you start getting older, some of those family values and being near family when you're struggling, trying to make it through this stuff, having a hand to help is so nice. And you kind of get sucked back in, and then you start understanding the value of simplicity. And it's so simple here in Joplin. And I'm not saying that's everyone's values, just for us, just a simple life in a small town is where we ended up. So it wasn't the plan, but we had some unique challenges, right? So to your point, you go cash pay aesthetics. I never did insurance. Straight out the gate, cash pay aesthetics. You don't pull up a map and start looking at demographics and say, oh my gosh, a town of 50,000, we have 51,000 people, a town of 50,000 people with an average household income. This is household, the entire house. The household income's 38K. I promise you, friends, that's not where you're putting a pin in the map saying this is ripe for the pickings for cash pay aesthetics. But because of all the other factors, this is where we kind of, staked our flag in the ground. And it's really allowed us some very unique perspective. And it's allowed us to gain and then subsequently deploy and educate our colleagues on principles that we've learned over the last 10 years that apply beyond our context. So our context, small town, no money. But the principles we've learned, interestingly enough, we've found kind of break through all kinds of barriers and can be applied whether you're big city, small city, rich zip code, lower socioeconomic setting. These principles apply. And it gets me just amped, if you can't tell, to be able to share those with my colleagues who missed, unfortunately, most of us, let's be honest, missed all of the business classes when we were trying to be medical professionals. So it's really an honor for me to be able to kind of share just my experience and what I've learned.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story because I've been to your facility and it's world class. It's a facility that you would see in the middle of New York City, right there in the middle of Joplin, and you are fortunate to be having a wife and a business partner who just really runs a tight ship, and it's a great operation. But when you were setting up in Joplin, Missouri, 50,000 people. Population. Go back and give me some color on what some of those challenges were. Did you get resistance from the local community? Was it just difficult getting the word out, getting people to spend in cash pay aesthetics? What was the big challenges that you ran into?
Volumes. Yeah, volumes 100%. So when I travel, I have to instantly develop rapport, like right away, which is hard to do because if you're going to listen to me all weekend, I gotta make sure I've got something for you to listen to. So my first job when I go on stage is within the first 15 minutes, I got to be a credible guy that you're going to want to listen to. So the way I develop rapport is I tell a little bit of my story and then I draw a distinction. Like my context is clear. I just was in Dallas last week and I'm in Charleston this week and Indianapolis next week and Denver after that. So I'm going big cities, big markets. And so I have to let them know, like, why should they listen to this kid from this small town? So my challenge, and I tell them this, may be different. My context may be different, but at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same fight. So my challenge was an absolute value of people and then no money. So we have no people and no money. Those are hard hurdles to climb when you are a cash pay aesthetics practice straight out the gate. I mean, I remember, Jerome, we opened up our business and on day one, I showed up. I said, all right, Joplin, I'm here. We're here. Guess how many people came in the doors first day? 2.
Right.
Me and my wife. Talk about stressful, boy. And so what we found when we tried to open was a challenge, a limitation on absolute value of people. We had access to few people, and even worse, we had access to few people with money, and that doesn't bode well for a cash pay practice. So that's my context. But like I said, at the end of the day, we're fighting the same fight, and the fight that we're fighting, whether big city, small city, is how do we get people in the door, and then how do we get these energy-based devices or these service lines or these skill sets? How do we get adoption? How do we get people in the door? How do we get these devices busy? So maybe different context. Maybe your context is you come from a big city. You got a ton of people with a ton of money, but you got competition on every street corner. So the fight's the same. How do you get people in the door? How do you get these devices busy? How do you get these service lines busy? How do you get these providers busy?
You talked about your speaking engagements. Now, I know you're booked up for 18 months typically. Was there a moment when that you recall a meeting, an event, a person you met that really elevated you from cosmetic surgeon in Joplin, Missouri to now one of North America's leading spokespeople for what's new in aesthetic medicine?
Yeah. So if you're asking for one influential person in this world, obviously, gosh, it's been 2016, so 8 years. I got a unique opportunity through my local rep. I bought an InMode device. I think they could tell I was charismatic. I don't think I was really on their radar because of my context. So I kind of had to beg and plead for some stage time. But I said, man, guys, I could present this well. I could tell my story. This device is blowing up in my practice, and I can show people how to do it. And the reality is, when I finally got a chance, they invited me out to come. They gave me like 45 minutes on Sunday when no one's left in the audience, right? So I was definitely the B team, the JV. There's a character who you know well, his name's Steve Mulholland, was the main stage. And I just remember watching him thinking, gosh, he is just captivating to watch. He's funny to listen to. He's simultaneously educating me, but also making me want to buy more devices. And I just thought, I think I could do that well. So I gave my 45-minute speech on business and how we roll these out, and it was well received. But then I got asked back, and the next time after watching Steve, I came with some heat, boy. I remember I can't come with some heat, and I put together a ton of flash and sizzle, and I had videos and just funny stuff, video montages. And I remember the biggest compliment that I got was Dr. Mulholland. As soon as lights went out, I did my video. I noticed he was in the back of the audience with his iPhone, videoing me. And I was told, I don't know if this is true, I was told that kind of when he was done, he didn't really stick around to watch much. When he was out, he's out. But he stuck around and watched my whole presentation. And then he ended up telling one of the InMode workers that kid's gonna be on the main stage someday. And that made it back to me, and that was just a huge compliment. And that was 8 years ago, and now I've got to share the stage with him. Now I get to do my own 2-day events. So that was probably a very influential meeting, me watching him, and then just an interaction that meant a lot to me. I don't even know if he knows that story, but
Dr. Mulholland has not only influenced many in the aesthetic medical world, he's also influenced the business world, capital markets. He is a true visionary when it comes to looking ahead and seeing what's out there, certainly in the aesthetic medical field. And I think the meeting of the minds with both of you really created something very special in terms of being spokespeople for the industry. I want to turn now to your personal philosophy. You've built an amazing business. People all over America talk about the Meningus facility. In fact, you train doctors who fly out on best practices. So talk to me about your core principles. How do you build a world-class facility? We have a lot of doctors and aesthetic medical practice owners and just entrepreneurs who watch the show. What does it take to build a world-class facility?
Yeah, it first takes vision. Obviously, I find all the time when I'm speaking and as I'm talking to colleagues, there's a lot of fragmented focus, which is understandable. A lot of these guys are doing your traditional insurance-based practices, or in Canada, like managed care practices, but they're also trying to adopt cash pay service lines. And so that I asked them, hey, who are you and what do you do? Tell me about you. It's a very fragmented focus. I've got my managed care world over here. I've got my cash pay budding business over here that I'm trying to get to explode. And so there's just a fundamental kind of lack of consolidation of vision. So to answer that question, I think it starts with a vision, and then it finishes with action. And so you don't just get somewhere by accident. You know this all too well, Jerome. So you have to have a vision, but then you have to have a strategy to execute. And so when I'm training my fellows, I have a 1-year accredited fellowship program. We don't even worry about surgery in the first 3 months. Like they'll get so much surgery, they don't even need to worry about surgery. What they need to worry about is how to start and manage a company. And so within the first quarter, I have them do a business strategy plan. By the end of that quarter, we will have gone through some core fundamental principles that you've done a million times, that I've done a million times, like SWOT analyses and looking at their market demographics. And so we start with the vision, and then we start working on the strategic initiatives. That's going to be action steps that they can start checking off. So here's what's so crazy. Understanding that philosophy is that you don't end up somewhere by accident. If you have a vision and you put a strategy, it becomes then just following the steps. And of course, I'm in a different position than I could have ever imagined. But just by having a vision and a strategy, once you start taking step 1 and step 2 and step 3, and start executing, it's unbelievable what doors open. And maybe you go over here, maybe you go over here. But at the end of the day, you're advancing the ball down the field in hopes of ending in the end zone. So vision first, action second.
Awesome. I want to turn to your book. I just finished reading this, and this is an awesome read. When COVID hit, we saw this mass exodus, aesthetic medical, traditional GPs, doctors leaving managed care and getting into aesthetics. And you wrote a book on leaving managed care and getting into and building a profitable aesthetic practice. Tell me why folks out there who are getting into this business of private medicine should read this, and what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, the inspiration was you guys watching. I mean, as I get to the unbelievable opportunity to travel around, I just meet so many colleagues that want something different. They just don't know how to get there. So this book comes from my own experiences, but then it's also practical principles. Like I said, vision first, strategy second. This is strategic initiatives or step by step on how you can go out there and grab what you want. And at the end of the day, I can't determine for you what you want. You know that. You know, maybe you want more time. Maybe it's not a big paycheck. Maybe it's freedom of time. Maybe it's control of your schedule. So at the end of the day, one powerful thing, and this isn't my thought, it's Stephen Covey's. You all probably have read his book, but it's begin with the end in mind. And so once you can define what that end is, like for me, it's having total autonomy of my schedule. And it's having a paycheck that supports the lifestyle that I want to live. So I want to be free of a boss and have a paycheck that supports the life that I want to live. That's my kind of, and I can give you a ton of, definers within that, but broadly, that's what I'm after. And so once you define that, then it's how do I get there? And this book is how I employed practical principles to get that. So for you, define success. What is it? What is the end game? What is the end goal that you want? Define that. And then this book, I think, through at least your aesthetics cash pay practice, will help you achieve that.
What I love about it is it's probably one of the first business books that speaks to healthcare professionals. And so well done. And we have it available on the Boomerang FX Learn e-store. I want to talk about your practice and how you accelerated your practice. You went from 0 to millions, okay? What technologies did you bring in to run your practice? And then what technologies did you use to sort of deliver treatments? Because we know that, you've got to be at the top of your game on both fronts to really build a world-class facility.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question that you and me can unpack over just one entire podcast episode. So I'll try to keep it brief. Before we get to the specifics of the technology, if you want to accelerate growth, there's a few things that you have to have. You have to have a foundation to spring off of, right? So you have to have a solid foundation. And that comes through things like your value proposition. So our fundamental foundation, like what we deliver in our market that sets us apart. That is your value proposition. And I would encourage you, if you can't name that, if you can't verbalize that, understand what makes you uniquely valuable in your market. And for us at the beginning, I I truly cared about two big things. That was the results that I gave my patients and the level of service that I provided them. This is like my two fundamental things that I wanted to really execute well. And so from that right away, 9, 10 years ago when I first started, I developed this saying, excellent care, exceptional results. Excellent care, exceptional results. I just pounded it in everybody's excellent care, exceptional results. That's our value proposition. It's on our t-shirts, it's on our walls, it's on our tumblers, it's on every media. Excellent care, exceptional results. And here's what's interesting, Jerome. In the beginning, it sounded great. I knew I cared about it, but I didn't really know what it meant. But I do know, after looking back over the last 10 years, I spent every day trying to deliver it and achieve it. And in so doing, when I look back over the last 10 years, and here's what I found interesting, is when you can name and claim a value proposition, and then you consistently, and the key is consistently, when you can consistently deliver on your value proposition, what ends up happening over time is you develop a reputation. And when you develop a reputation, all of a sudden, you can start doing things that go beyond kind of your normal sensibilities. I'm in a town with no money, but I am not a low price competitor. In fact, we're way more expensive than most around us, and even big city players within 3-hour drives. So we charge price premiums because we've earned that because of our reputation. So in terms of growth accelerators, you need a strong foundation to grow upon, and then you need to understand scale well. So good foundation, the ability to scale, and then you need to know who you are and what you're delivering. And we can talk about scale another time, but really the take home is understand who you are and what you're delivering. And then within that, so we knew that we wanted to deliver excellent care, exceptional results. And every day we were trying to define that. Well, part of defining that was I needed certain service lines and certain opportunities. As a surgeon, I had a lot of patients not wanting surgery, but they wanted a result. So within my value proposition, I started looking around, well, how can I give someone a result who doesn't want surgery? And then I landed on InMode. And the original device they had that I acquired anyways was the BodyTite back in 2016. And that allowed me to melt fat, tighten skin without taking someone back and giving them a surgical excision. And this is where we really started unpacking some of these principles over the last 10 years that really generated success. So in terms of accelerated growth, it came from a strong foundation, knowing who we are and what we were delivering, and then setting up that foundation to scale well over time. Because at the end of the day, if I'm the only one generating revenues, there's only so many hours in the day. So I am the limitation to financial success if it's on me to deliver services that we subsequently charge for. So we have to be able to scale. I have now multiple providers that are all generating incomes. And so now I'm not limited to just my time. Again, we could put a pin in that one and break that out on another podcast.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge for most physicians is how do you create that scalability through your staff? And it sounds like you've figured it out. I want to talk a little bit about InMode, because InMode has clearly revolutionized the industry in the last 10 years. They are clearly the standout leader when it comes to devices in aesthetic medicine, skin tightening, et cetera. What are your favorite technologies, and what are you seeing in the market right now? What's really hot for some of our budding aesthetic medical practices, practice owners, including physicians getting into med spa?
I'm smiling right now because that's the most unfair question you're probably going to ask me, because that's ask me which one's my favorite kid, right? I've got 3 of them. It's like, ask me which one's my favorite kid. So if I had to pick one right now, it's the newest one because it's the coolest one. That's the Quantum. So the Quantum is a single cannula, bipolar radio frequency for fat melting and skin tightening. And the cool thing is you don't have to do liposuction with it. It can be, in most states, delegated to other providers. So in my world, in the state of Missouri, We can't give you legal advice on this podcast. You got to look up your state regs, but in the state of Missouri, it's totally fair game for my nurse practitioner to provide these treatments. So they're delegated to her. But this thing is so trick, man. It's so cool. You don't have to do liposuction with it. You simply provide a little solution to get the patients numb right there in the office chair. No general anesthesia. We don't even give any oral meds. It's just a little solution to make them numb. And she applies this treatment. It's very, very quick and unbelievably effective. So if I had to pick one right now, it's that one. But gosh, we love all of our InMode devices. I will say one huge misstep I had in light of this is waiting to adopt the female wellness platform. That's a regret of mine, honestly. Because as a surgeon, I just wanted to operate. But at the same time, I was doing mommy makeovers every day of the week. And so one of the nurses like, why don't we have all the pelvic floor female wellness stuff? It's like, I'm not a GYN. I don't want to do that. It is one of the biggest, not failures, but biggest missteps, because once we adopted that device creates so much user satisfaction. So the Empower device is the female wellness device. Dr. Blueswicks, who's on this platform as well, has championed that. She's an OBGYN that founded a lot of those technologies. And at the end of the day, basically, Cliff Notes version, it improves tightness, improves lubrication, it improves sensation, it improves stress urinary incontinence, all the things that a lot of our female patients have after having children. And for some reason, I was just kind of resistant to get it because I didn't want one more thing to have to manage. But on the backside of getting it, my nurse practitioner does all those treatments. Oh my gosh, just a mini explosion in the practice of excitement. People bringing their friends in because it's so great. The patient satisfaction is off the charts with it. So that's another favorite. And of course, the body tights are my tried and true. I've had them since 2016. I love those.
It's awesome.
Hard to answer. Basically, I just told you everything.
Yeah. Yeah, InMode has really changed the game for aesthetics. I want to wrap up with, a question around, words of wisdom from you to folks getting into the business. They're going to run into challenges, and we want to inspire people to keep pushing through those challenges. That's why we named the podcast Challenger X. Speak to those who are sort of on the fence and getting into private medicine, ones that have just opened, who are looking for some core principles to really build a successful practice.
Yeah, if I were administering encouragement to a young budding physician or medical provider that was just starting in this space, and if you wanted to get warm and fuzzy with it or get personal, I could give you all kinds of advice, business, clinical, but I'm going to leave it with the warm fuzzies. And then we'll get into the other stuff in future episodes. But I would say something that I wish that someone told me early on that I figured out for myself is do not let others define you. And what I mean by that is in this space, when you get started, there's not a lot of friends. It can be, especially in depending on your market, it can be very cutthroat and it can be very competitive. And I run into so many people, Jerome, on the weekends that are general practitioners or emergency medicine physicians that are resentful and just so sick of their current life. They're trying to get in aesthetics, but the first thing that they are told is you shouldn't be doing this, or you can't do this because you're not this type of physician. And so it becomes demoralizing sometimes. And so I think if you took a poll for all the people that have found success, they would share the same sentiment that they have worked through adversity. They didn't let others define them. So it comes back to defining your end game. What is success to you? And then don't listen to the chatter, because you're going to hear a lot of it when you first get started. So it becomes very important to not let others define you. So you have to be really grounded in your beliefs and where you're headed. And then you have to find friends, which is really hard to do in this industry. And so when I say you have to find friends, I mean simple stuff like, how do I get educated? Where do I start? And that's why I'm so thankful that Boomerang exists. And I'm so honored to be able to be a part of the educational platform, because talk about a friend in the industry when there's not one. I mean, there is thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of content on the Learn platform. And now I participate heavily in that. So when you're a brand new provider, just getting the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, and the opportunity to hear from industry leaders who are fostering a sense of community. I'm truly, if you can't pick it up through the camera, I'm truly passionate about your success. So those of you listening, Boomerang FX and specifically their Learn platform is a wonderful, wonderful place to find a friend when there aren't many as you're getting started.
Dr. Talon Meningas, thank you for your time. You are an inspiration to many in the healthcare and broader business world. I'm honored to call you as a friend, and we look forward to having you back on another episode. Thanks a lot.
Can't wait. I appreciate the time.